What's up, weebs, and welcome back to Anime Lane, the podcast where we take you down the yellow brick road of anime and have a look at everything it has to offer. I'm your host, Notorious, and once again, I am just by myself. But unlike last time, where I just kind of talked about what I had been watching recently, today I'm actually going to not one for one use the normal structure when I have Melina and Shaun, but I'm going to take a similar approach because it works. That's the show's structure. So I'm going to try and apply that on my own. Of course, when I'm by myself, it's not quite the same, so expect that things may get repeated in episodes if, I feel like it's something I want to show Shaun and Melina. This can act as like a kind of prequel or prelude where I give my thoughts, but like obviously the larger episodes are about hearing Shaun and Melina's thoughts as well. So at the top of the show, though, while I remember, since this is the first one I'm recording post this happening, and it's kind of the first time I can formally mention it, is that we're now available on YouTube. Full episodes, not highlights or anything like that, though we are thinking, if there's a way we can incorporate something like that in between main episodes. But basically, if you go to our YouTube, which is just, if you type in Anime Lane Podcast on YouTube, or you can go to a link in the description, probably. I'll add that in, I guess. Yeah, full episodes if you if you prefer watching on there, since I know not everyone has a preferred podcast platform. So yeah, if you want updates on that, you can go to our Twitter, which is at Anime Lane Cast. Yeah, I think that's kind of all I had to mention about that. It's the same with Nap, actually, but I'm sure we'll address that when we're recording another Nap session. We are kind of scheduled for Nap like to the end of September, though. So our next recording session is going to be all the Halloween stuff, which I'm sure you'll find out about when the time comes for Nap. Or I'll do some posts on social media or something like that, because we do have some plans in the works for Halloween. But this is Anime Lane. And so I did mention I'm doing the same or similar structure we have on the I keep going to call it the main show, but it's not really. But like, when I have someone else with me, obviously, like I said, when I do solo episodes, it's usually just because of scheduling things, and I want to maintain the schedule of the podcast as well as I can. So if that means that for the most part it's kind of a solo episode, then Shaun and Melina for kind of most times, and then Kelsey or a guest or whoever will show up on the occasion when scheduling works out. So you may probably hear me on my own more often, which is fine. Like I said, there's stuff I want to discuss that like I couldn't bring up normally in the podcast. So yeah, like I'll probably go over your format. I think I mentioned this in the last episode. I'm just looking at my own time to try and kind of carve out to reread the first volume, so I can talk about that in preparation for the second volume, which is November, if I'm remembering correctly. So yeah, roundabout, given when it's coming out in November, sorry, it'll probably be a December episode, because I kind of try and get these things in the bag kind of a month in advance. So we'll see though. So for today's episode, another piece of news I actually wanted to mention, and this will probably get brought up again the next time me, Shaun and Melina are recording, because we're going to be covering Lupin again, and we're going to be covering Lupin the 3rd to 1st, since this is probably coming out in between the Gundam 1 episode or Penguin Highway, I should say, and the next episode. Unfortunately, the original voice actor for Daisuke Jigen and Lupin the 3rd, Kiyoshi Kobayashi, sadly passed away just the other day. I am recording this on Wednesday the 10th of August. Not to date this, but it will be dated because of one of the topics I'm going to cover, and this obviously as well. And I believe he passed away on Monday. I was very sad to hear that. Apparently he passed away on July 30th. But I think it only became known Yeah, looking at this, yeah, that's confusing. Um, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it was only announced a couple of days ago, as of when I'm recording this. Um, but yeah, he passed away at the end of July. Um, and like I think I mentioned this when we were talking about Cagliostro. I'm not sure if I ever brought it up again. But Jigen was my favorite character. Um, and I really enjoyed hearing him as Jigen in the Japanese dub. So yeah, bit of sad news. Um, thoughts going out to his family and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, just a bit of sad news. Rest in peace. So transitioning out of that, there's no good way of transitioning in and out, I suppose. The topics of today's episode. So the first one I'm going to tackle is Legends of the Galactic Heroes. Legends of the Galactic Heroes.
Die Neue These.
In English, it's a new thesis. It's based in German. Probably because in the kind of within universe, the Empire or the Imperial Navy, originally founded by Emperor Rudolph and now currently led by Friedrich the Fourth, I believe, who one of the main characters, Reinhard von Longram, is a very prominent figure in, is kind of based in Germanic, kind of the Imperial World War One prior, structure and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, no. So I had originally watched this back in 2019, and since then there's been another 2 seasons. So this is the third one's finished, and the fourth one begins, I think, in September. So I'm hoping to cover each season in preparation for the new one coming out, which means the new one will be delayed in getting covered, because that'll be part of the winter, or no, the fall season, sorry. But yeah, so the quick history lesson is that Legend of the Galactic Heroes is based on the novel series written by Yoshiki Tanaka, who also wrote the Heroic Legend of Arslan series. Unfortunately, the Heroic Legend of Arslan, the books at least, haven't been translated in English, which I am desperate to get a translation for. And so we're left with the original OVA series, which has gone out of print. It was originally released by Central Park Media. The Hiromu Arakawa manga, Hiromu Arakawa being the original author of the Fullmetal Alchemist manga, she's currently working on a adaptation of Arslan, which is actually very good. I really enjoyed that manga. And there's an anime adaptation kind of mostly based on Arakawa's adaptation, which lasted a season, and then like an 8-episode second season that isn't actually canon. It's not really covering her storyline, mainly because I think the anime by that point had caught up to what she had put out. It's all kind of confusing, but Arslan isn't the topic, so moving back to Legend of the Galactic Heroes, that is translated in English. So there's 10 novels published in English by Viz Media, originally written between 1982 and 1987, was originally then adapted into a 110 episode OVA, original video animation series, in the 80s, I believe. Let me just double check. 84 through to 89. Wait, no, sorry, that's the side novels. I'm trying to find the section about the anime. Gaiden, Golden Wings, Legend of the Galactic Heroes. So it originally ran from 1988 to 1997. It's the longest OVA series to currently exist. Jumping back to the new thesis, this is a reboot adaptation. I don't know why they rebooted it. Probably because the original OVA, given how long it is probably unwieldy to kind of continue to promote and re-release for a modern audience, and so this is kind of their best way to do it by re-releasing it as, Well, I can't remember if the first season is purely a TV series, because I know that the second, third, and now the upcoming fourth season is actually released in Japan as like movies. So it's like one movie which consists of 4 episodes, the second the same, third the same, to make a 12 episode series when it comes to Crunchyroll over here. So like it comes out in Japan on release day, we get 1 episode, and then we get the other 3 episodes in the weeks following, and then the next month, the next movie in Japan will come out, and we'll get the 5th episode, and so on and so forth, till we get all 12. So it basically means we get like a 12 consecutive week anime run like normal, but in Japan it's movies. So I'm not sure kind of their approach to this and how they've decided that. But yeah, the New Thesis. I've never seen the original, but after I originally watched the New Thesis, I did read the first book, but it's been that long that I don't recall much of that. I believe there's a few differences, and I'm going to cover that when I get into the New Thesis now. This is a really interesting series. So the basic premise is that sometime in the future, I believe it's around 1,000 years from now, because there's like 3 calendars. You have the Imperial calendar, you have the calendar the Free Planets Alliance use, and like or the normal, or like Anno Domini calendar, which gets mentioned once in like the 3rd episode when it's giving you kind of like a rundown of the history. And I can't follow the Imperial and Free Planets Alliance calendars. I just get confused because it brings up both of them, and like both of them have no bearing on me as a meaning whatsoever. But I believe going on the one time that the Anno Domini was mentioned, that was around 2800, which is like when, within the lore of the show, Emperor Rudolph came to power, I think, and then the series is mainly set about 200 years after that. So I believe it is around like 3000, the year 3000-ish. So it's set somewhere in the future where, you know, humans have moved away from Earth. They've founded new planets, and there was like a galactic empire established, very kind of not Nazi. Well, yeah, no, kind of given by the lore, it's got a Nazi kind of esque, like not structure, but like dictatorship essentially. Because there's one character, Oberstein, who has artificial eyes because he had like a congenital disease, I think it was, where his eyes, you know, he needed artificial ones put in. And it's mentioned that if he was born in the time of Emperor Rudolph, he would have been killed under like a certain inferior genetics act or something like that. So that sets the vibe of what like the Empire was. It's now a little bit freer than that, but it's still like an imperialistic empire. And so like the Empire is the backdrop of one of the main characters, who I mentioned earlier, Reinhard von Lohengram. He is your he aspires to be the emperor himself. So like he wants to dethrone and essentially stage a coup, and take over the universe. And he's accompanied by his best friend and right hand man, Kirk Heiss, whose full name I have blanked on. So I'm just gonna double check what his first name is, because Kirk Heiss is his last name. And Lohengram refuses. Siegfried Kirk Heiss. And so like there's a lot of characters in this, and that's like one of the struggles I have with it, is that there's so many characters and so many names thrown on the screen and at you and dialogue, that I just kind of only really retain ones that seem important. And so that's Kirk Heiss, Lohengram, Yang Wen Li, who I'll talk about in a minute, Oberstein, Yeah, there's probably more than that, but off the top of my head, and that's something. If you're watching the series, like I highly recommend like not trying to retain all of the names, especially because a lot of these characters will show up just to die, like very soon after you meet them. Um, and so then in the Free Planets Alliance, who was founded because people wanted to escape the Empire when Rudolph died, I think. And so they like, rather than living still under the Imperial reign, when a successor was appointed, they like left, and they founded the Free Planets Alliance, and so they've been at a war for like 150 years, and that's where Yang Wen Li comes into it. He's the up and coming fantastic tactician, and there's a lot of tech. Oh my god, why can't I say it? Tactics and tactical maneuvering, because it's all about space battles and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, that kind of lots of space battles and maneuvering and saying, oh hey, let's do this, if that way we can get around the enemy and they won't see it coming and all this sort of stuff, and like that's cool, but at the same time I'm more there for like the character exchanges and the action sequences, and that action sequences are really well done in this. They're mostly they're all rendered in CG, but given that it's production IG who are animating this, it's very well done. All the ships look fantastic, and all the kind of fights, ship battles and stuff like that look amazing. But that's like, you kind of build up to that, and it's the result of like all these kind of meetings and like character storylines that have fed up to this moment. So there's only like a handful within the first season. You kind of have the one at the start where Yang first meets Lohengram, where first meets Reinhardt. It's weird, neither name feels right for Lohengram, Reinhardt or von Lohengram. But yeah, so that's like where they first meet. And the first kind of battle of the show introduces you to the way they think and stuff like that. And that both of them are fantastic tacticians that are gonna clash and butt heads as opposing forces. And then it kind of cuts back in time a little bit, because you watch the first two episodes, and what's really interesting is you need to watch those first two episodes to get the full story of just those two episodes. Because the first episode is almost entirely like Reinhard von Lohengram's perspective, and then the second episode is entirely Yang Wen Li's perspective, and so like you need both halves to get the whole. And it does that quite often in the series, which is very interesting. Is that you'll go for maybe two or three episodes where you're just getting like the Empire's perspective, which is what happens, I believe, after the first two episodes. I think it does like a brief rundown of the history of the universe, and then it gives you like Lohengram sort of his backstory. One thing I'm kind of confused about, and I think this is only because I'm pretty sure it comes up in the first book, is that he's called Reinhard von Lohengram now, but in his younger years he was Reinhard von Musil. So I was just kind of confused about that, because it never gets explained within the first season, but I'm pretty sure it got mentioned in the book. Like I said, it's been a while since I've read that, and I can't actually remember the reason for it. And so I'm sure it's something that'll come up eventually in the future. But anyway, as I was saying, it kind of goes through his, backstory, his history as a young boy, why he is who he is today, and then shows you like what the Empire are up to at that point, appointing him like fleet admiral, so he like has control of half the fleet and stuff like that. And then it snaps over to Yang Wen Li and shows a bit of his history, not as a boy, but how he became known as like this great tactician, and how he gained his standing within the military and stuff like that, and how he isn't really a military person, he's just doing it because that was the only way he could make a living and stuff. And so yeah, it's this nice kind of like balancing act it does over the course of just 12 episodes. Um, Balancing like two perspectives, with the occasional third thrown in with the is it the Dominion of Fezan? I know it's Fezan. And that's oh, I forget the character's name. Rubinsky, I believe, who is looks like he's trying to play both sides of this war. So that's going to be something that I think will be interesting as the series goes on. So it's like the first season's kind of very much just like a lot of setup. You kind of see the beginning of a lot of political movements. Because like the Free Planets Alliance is pretty much like driven entirely by the fact that at the point in the story we're at anyway, that there's like a big election coming up, and so there's a lot of like very reckless decisions pushed through by the people who want to get re-elected. So they push for the Navy to invade and take over like a fortress, Islahorn, which is like a very important strategic point because it's like right smack bang center in like a galactic corridor. I can't remember what it's called, cosmic corridor or something, which is like an untraversable point of space, but like there's a certain route you can take through it, and that's like directly in the middle, so it acts as like a gateway between the Free Planets Alliance and the Imperial Navy, the Empire. So whoever controls it has like the upper hand of like invasion. So like if the Free Planets Alliance had it, they can invade the Empire, which is exactly what they do. Once they capture it, the politicians push to invade onto Imperial space and like free the planets, free in air quotes, because they don't really think through the undertaking that is when they're already discussing the fact that like any more push on the war effort is going to potentially make their kind of society collapse because they already can't feed or they don't have enough private sector workers. Like so much is being pumped into their military. So it's all this really interesting kind of dynamics between politics, the military, people just wanting to live their lives, and all these kind of how these characters all interact within that. And that's very interesting because obviously you then have the flip of that, which is Reinhard von Lohengram and his aspiration to be the emperor and displace the current one, which he's obviously having to do underhandedly because if you openly show that he would be arrested, he'd be tried and killed or whatever. So yeah, Legend of the Galactic Heroes it's very interesting, and like I said, it just feels like it's kind of mostly just being set up. And then the season ends because like the season ends as the Free Planets Alliance are in Imperial territory, and like because this is like such an ill thought out plan, the kind of three fleets or the multiple set of fleets, they're set. I don't know how many fleets are sent in, around 13 or 14 or something like that are sent in, but like split into three different like long lines. This is really hard to picture without all the kind of complementary stuff from the anime. But like it's essentially like, so because obviously the longer something is, the longer it takes to send supplies. And so they start running into supply issues, and obviously they're trying to help the citizens who also have issues with food. So yeah, it doesn't end well, and so just as they're about to retreat, the Lohengrams forces show up, and they get in a big battle, and it's like they're trying to retreat, but the Free Planets Alliance like HQ military orders them to stay and fight at Armis Star, I believe it's called, and that's like gonna be like the very beginning of season 2. So I'm very excited for that. Very good show. I'm very intrigued to see where this goes. I'm not sure how much this adapts, if it's going to be like a season per book, or if there's like another way that it's kind of being broken down, because I can't find any information on how it's being adapted. I did kind of do a quick Google of like how much does the New Thesis adapt. But I couldn't find an answer. So that'll be interesting. I am intrigued to go and read the books when I'm maybe like mostly caught up with the anime. Like I'll maybe wait for the fourth season to air and finish, and then I'll like pick up the books and next year and like the start of 2023. There's only about 10 books, I think. But yeah, obviously, it takes time to read books and stuff like that. So that'll be interesting. Like I said, it's a lot of the show's weighted on its characters, their discussions and conversations. Like it's very dialogue heavy. And like I'll admit at times even I struggled to keep up, and obviously I've been reading subtitles for a while. And so as much as I want to show this to Shaun and Melina, I think it may be a bit of a test on them. So I'll maybe wait until we're a bit further into this, because I'd be interested to see their thoughts and like what they think of this as a show, and this is like a story that's being told. So yeah, I really enjoyed this, and like I said, looking forward to more. So I'm sure you'll hear my thoughts when season 2 when I finish that. Because yeah, like I said, season 1's a lot of setup. You kind of just get introduced to characters like Yang moves into his own place after moving out of the military academy type place, and he adopts like a son, but the relationship isn't like quite like that. So like it's weird to call him that. So it's like his ward essentially, I guess. Kind of think of like a Batman and Robin, but less stupid than Robin. Yeah, I don't know how to describe that. It was a weird analogy. I apologize for that. But yeah, I'm sure I'll discuss more of it when season 2 comes out. But for the moment, I don't really have much else to say. The music's great. I really enjoyed kind of the music. It's a nice balance of different styles. You got a nice kind of electronic vibe going on for some of the space battles, but then you've also got like very kind of classical patriotic pieces going on for both the Free Planets Alliance and the Empire. So yeah, that's interesting. Actually, another interesting thing is that during all of this, it seems like the current Emperor Friedrich, something like that, Frederick the Fourth, he's like aware of what Reinhard is doing, and just seems to be fine with the idea of his reign coming to an end, and like the dynasty, the Golden Bomb dynasty, like just being usurped by someone else. So that's going to be an interesting that's going to be interesting later on, because I feel like at some point Reinhard is going to become the Emperor, and then a lot of characters on his side may turn against him. I'd be interested to see if like Kirkheis ends up turning to the Free Planets Alliance later on. I think that would be interesting. I'm not going to, hold on to that idea. But yeah, that would be interesting, and I'm interested to see where that idea goes. So yeah, if you want to watch Legend of the Galactic Heroes, it's available on Crunchyroll in the UK. It's also available on Blu-ray in the US. But I don't know if Crunchyroll are ever going to release it here in the UK. It still feels weird to say Crunchyroll when I'm talking about stuff like this. It was Crunchyroll that it was on and primarily licensed by, but then it was released on Blu-ray in the US by Funimation, and at the time when it came out, that was manga. Anyway, I'm not going to get hung up in this conversation anymore. I'm going to take a quick drink, and then I'm going to move on to my next topic. Also, I apologize if you can hear like a fan in the background. It's been very warm today. But yeah, anyway, moving on to my next topic. It's my summer seasonal impressions, which this is probably going to be a recurring theme, is that I don't pick up many seasonal shows. So I'll only have like one or two to talk about. So probably if I keep doing this for each season, what I'll probably do is like one in the middle. So like if it's like a 12 episode season of something that I'm watching, I'll do one at like 6 episodes, and then I'll do another one when it's finished, to give like a conclusive like what are my thoughts on it when it's finished. And like obviously the 6th episode one is like, what's my impression of the show so far? Have I continued watching it? Have I dropped it? I mean, if I drop something, I'll probably bring it up in the episode where I'm talking about my seasonal impressions, but I don't drop shows very often. I kind of like, if I'm watching them week to week, when they're a seasonal thing, I very much just kind of push through. But yeah, so I'm not going to talk about Is It Wrong to Try to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, Dan Machi, season 4, just yet, because it's only on its 3rd episode. Episode 4 comes out tomorrow. Like I mentioned, I record these on Wednesdays if I'm recording on my own. So like the new episode of Dan Machi isn't out until the next day. Whoa, sorry, I just very much bumped my microphone there. So I don't want to talk about that because it's only 3 episodes, so I don't really have a bearing or gauge on this season yet. I am enjoying it, but we've only just kind of started to get into what's going on. So yeah, the other 2 I picked up are My Stepmom's Daughter Is My Ex and Rent a Girlfriend season 2. God, this fucking season sucks. There wasn't much taking my interest this season. Now that we're kind of halfway through for anything that's like 12 episodes, I am getting a bearing on what everyone's enjoying. And so that'll inform kind of some of the shows that I'll pick up later, when I'm looking to kind of pick out the, what did everyone enjoy shows, which I usually do when the season's finished. Like Horus Recoil is kind of, everyone seems to be enjoying that from what I'm seeing. Though some people are having their small issues with it. So I'll be intrigued to watch that when it's finished. But it's not one I'm going to pick up currently. So that being said, Rent a Girlfriend season 2 I think is where I'm going to start. So I watched season 1 a couple of months ago. Not long after, in fact, right after we recorded the first episode for this podcast, which I know came out in June, but we recorded in April. Just to give you a kind of peek behind the scenes, that first episode we had recorded for 2 months prior to it being released. But both of Nap and Anime Lane were originally, we used the first episode as pilots for college projects. So that meant there was a lot of other stuff going on with those before we could officially release and officially move into full production for each show. So after we recorded, I picked up like 10-ish shows from like 2020 to 2021 that like everyone seemed to enjoy. So I was like, okay, let's finally watch these and see what's going on. So it was like stuff like Jujutsu Kaisen, Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out, Mushoku Tensei, Rent a Girlfriend, Ranking of Kings, which I dropped. I didn't finish that actually. And I think that's it. That's all I can remember off the top of my head. I remember watching more than that though. Oh yeah, I also watched Nagatoro, which I can't remember the full name of that show. Nagatoro no, Uzaki-chan Wants to Hang Out. Nagatoro, I don't know, I didn't really like Nagatoro. But anyway, so Rent a Girlfriend was one of them, and oh boy, I had no idea what to expect with this show. Honestly, like I've seen people talking about it, but I didn't really get an idea of what the show was. I only kind of seen reactions to like one of the recent chapters at the time. I think it was chapter 218. And now if you've read the manga, you probably know what I'm talking about. And so like I started watching the show because I was like, how bad can it be? Everyone's talking about this. Everyone seems to kind of have mixed opinions on it. Like I couldn't get a clear indication of whether people liked it or hated it. And now I'm watching it, I get it, because like I don't necessarily like the show, but I'm intrigued to see where it goes. So the basic premise for Rent a Girlfriend is that Kazuya has just recently been dumped by his first girlfriend, Mami, who is like a recurring character, and so in his desperation and loneliness, he finds a sap that lets him, like, rent a girlfriend, but, like, not in a sleazy way. It's like you go on dates with people that, like, pretend to be your girlfriend. It's a bit odd, but I think this is an actual thing in some places. And so he meets Mizuhara, who ends up being his neighbor. He kind of falls for her. There's another rent-a-girlfriend that his friend meets, who ends up falling for Kazuya. That's Ruka. She's like I think she's in her final year of high school or something like that. Kazuya's in college, so is Mizuhara, and so is his friend. So that's kind of weird. And then there's also another character whose name I totally forget, but she's very shy, and she signed up to the service because she wants to kind of try and bring herself out of herself. Sumi, that's her name. Sumi Sakurasawa. Sakurasawa? That's an odd. That trips my tongue up. But yeah, so Sumi, she like signs up to the service to try and improve herself and kind of come out of her shell because she's very shy, and she's like the only good character. Everyone else is kind of just a horrible person. And so like it turns out that Mizuhara is Kazuya's next door neighbor. He kind of falls for her. Things get a bit weird. And like he introduces Mizuhara to his gran as his girlfriend, so that kind of puts them in a sticky situation. But then it turns out that Kazuya's gran is also best friends with Mizuhara's gran, and so it puts them in an even weirder of a situation. It's all kinds of messed up. Season 2 has been pretty much same old when it comes to, you know, the storyline. Kazuya's still hung up on Mizuhara, who is kind of just very boring as a character. She's kind of plain. There's not really that much interesting about her. And then Ruka kind of thinks that Kazuya and her are like dating. So that leads to some funny situations, I guess. Actually, it did lead to one of the weirder parts of the season so far. In the most recent episode, I think, she kind of contrives a situation where she can like stay at his apartment with him, because of like a typhoon and trains getting cancelled and stuff like that, and my fans just ran out of battery. Yeah, so she contrives a situation for her to stay at his, and you know, she like tries to come on to him, for lack of a better term. And yeah, it just leads to a very weird part of the show, and I don't really want to talk about it now that I'm here talking about it. You can look up the clip. There's a dub clip from the Kazuya's English voice actor that you can find on YouTube. It's like, and it's a real piece of dialogue. It was also in the subtitles. You'll get what I'm looking for, what I'm talking about. So yeah, that's been a very, like I said, I don't necessarily like the show, but I'm intrigued to see where this goes for the characters and their relationships with each other. And like all of them are horrible people, so like I'm just hoping all of them end up miserable, except Sumi. She's like, you know, like I mentioned, she's actually kind of sweet. So everyone else though, like they can end up miserable for all I care. Yeah, Rent-A-Girlfriend's an odd one, but like Mami is a proper psycho. She just kind of keeps showing up to try and throw a wrench into Kazuya's life in general. Not just his love life, but like just in general, she kind of tries to fuck up his life. Like I said, Mizuhara is kind of boring. Ruka is odd. She is just totally obsessed with Kazuya, and like what I don't get is that Kazuya is just like so hung up with Mizuhara that he's like, oh, he doesn't even consider giving Ruka a chance, which is so odd. Like you would think he would at least, you know, consider it, if he's not wanting to be single anymore. But yeah, it's an odd show. I really don't know how much worse it can get, because there's been some really questionable moments. But speaking of questionable moments, let's move on to the the other seasonal pickup, which was my stepmom's daughter is my ex. Or there's a sort of shorter hand one that I found that I'm just gonna try and find again here. It was like Surikano, yeah. Funny enough, I was trying to explain this show to my friends, and like the whole my stepmom's daughter is my ex thing kept tripping them up, and like who was who. But I noticed on my anime list there's a synonym listed as my stepsister as my ex-girlfriend, which as a title would make way more sense, but then as I'm looking at the Japanese, it's Mamahaha no Surego ga Motokano Data, which, yeah, the official title is kind of more closer to that, I think. But yeah, Surikano. This show is driving me insane. It started out so bizarrely. Like, the whole setup is that Mizuto, who's the step brother in this situation, his dad remarries, and he gets married to the mother of his ex-girlfriend, which he didn't know about until like he met them, because it's like a kind of common thing with an anime that when, and I don't know if this is like a Japanese cultural thing, when like a parent remarries, they're not introduced to the like new partner until they're engaged, which is so bizarre to me. Maybe it is a cultural thing, and like if it is, that's, you know, absolutely cool. So like when you know they find out that, oh shit, yeah, we've dated before, and they don't tell their parents, they just kind of try and figure out how to live together, which would be totally fine if like the sister was not still totally obsessed with the step brother. So you have Mizuto, the brother, and you have Yumi, the sister. And yeah, like Yumi is very much obsessed with Mizuto, and so she like sets up this weird game where like if either of them step outside the bounds of like normal sibling relationships, they have to fulfill a request from the other one. And that leads to many weird situations. And I mean, just in general, Yumi is a bit weird. Like, the third episode opened with her, like, smelling her brother's underwear. How fucking weird is that? Yeah, and then, like, it hits the fifth, like, and then the fourth episode, they go on a date, which is weird. But it's, like, contrived to be that, like, Mizuto needs to convince, one of the friends of Yumi, that they're so totally into each other that she should just give up trying to marry him, because she wants to marry Mizuto so that she can live with him and Yumi. Because sure, why not? So they go on a date to try and convince her to not pursue marrying him, or like, it's such a confusing situation, and like it's suggested by Mizuto's friend, who's just like way too casual about suggesting that he goes on a date with his sister. And then it hits episode 5 and things kind of just become normal-ish. I mean, aside from Mizuto suggesting to Yumi that they go to a love hotel so that their parents can spend time together, which results in them staying at the previously mentioned friends, whose names I'm totally blanking on, because you got Mizuto's like guy friend, Kawanami, and then you have Yumi's like girlfriend, Minami, and they are neighbors apparently, and you know they have that kind of antagonistic friendship where like they're totally on each other, but neither of them wants to admit it. And so they're staying together. So they're, you know, living next to each other, and so each of them go, Mizuto and Yumi go and stay with one of them each, you know. And yeah, it's kind of funny in the way that they kind of, because there's like thin walls, they say things to mislead each side, and that kind of leads to some funny interactions and reactions from the characters. But then in the sixth episode, things just kind of go very normal out of nowhere, and it just kind of hit a boring slump. It did introduce a new character in the second half of the episode. It introduced Higashara. I'm totally blanking again, so I'm gonna just double check the character page. Higashira, who is, I guess, an interesting character, but like I said, she only shows up in the second half, and Yumi gets the wrong impression, thinks that she's into Mizuto, and so that leads to, her kind of trying to ignore Mizuto when he confronts her about it and blah blah blah. So hopefully it kind of, like, I'd rather it drove me insane than it went to just a boring middle of the ground rom-com. So hopefully, I don't know, yeah, this one's a weird one. It was doing like a good job of annoying me consistently, which I was enjoying in a sense. Like, I'd rather that than something be boring. But now it's kind of hitting a very kind of standard point of the show, and so I'm kind of worried that the second half is just going to be very normal, because that would just be boring for a show like this. It's almost like if Rent a Girlfriend just suddenly, like, Kazuya started dating Mizuhara and everything was going fine. Ruka wasn't bothering them, or Mami wasn't bothering them. They're just kind of coexisting as step siblings at the moment, and that's not really entertaining now. So yeah, hopefully that picks up again a little bit and drives me insane again, which is a weird thing to say. But yeah, because like Rent a Girlfriend, like I mentioned, I'm not really enjoying it, but I'm kind of intrigued where the character stories go. And there's a weird thing about, like, every episode makes me want to cringe myself out of existence. But it's at least entertaining, which can not be said for like a lot of stuff that comes out. It's just very kind of standard. Like, as much as I liked Shikimori's Not Just a Cutie, I'd say that it doesn't have as much appeal as Rent a Girlfriend and My Stepdaughter's Mom is my stepmom's daughter is my ex. Just because it's not as wild or out there. And like, that's, as much as they drive me insane, they are more entertaining to watch, but I think because they are train wrecks. It's like I would keep watching more seasons of Rag, more seasons of Surikano, but I don't think if Shikimori came back for a second season, if I would watch it. Like, I didn't watch Nagatoro straight up just because I don't like it. I don't like her. I don't like her relationship with the I don't actually know his name. Like, the kid that she kinda, I say kid, like they're the same age. Or no, he's a year younger because she's his senpai. But like the guy that she kinda attaches herself to, the show's very much not much for me. So anyway, yeah, I think that kind of brings a close to my impressions of the season so far. I'm interested to see where Rag goes specifically, because I think that's way more of a wild card in the direction of the series, whereas My Stepmom's Daughter is my ex. I think that I'm worried the second half could be boring, but hopefully it throws in more weird and wild card situations in the last half. So yeah, I hope this has been an interesting episode to listen to. I'm still kind of getting to grips with recording on my own, and kind of finding the balance and like how to speak for an extended period of time without anyone else here. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed this. Like I said, I'll be talking about Legends of the Galactic Heroes, the Neue These season 2 and stuff later. Probably do a season 2 and then a season 3 episode kind of and the ones after this episode. So basically, the way to picture it is that there's 2 episodes of Anime Lane a month. There's going to be one of me solo for the most part, I think, currently, just due to scheduling. And then one with Shaun and Melina. And like for the next little while, kind of like what we were doing with Gundam, with Shaun and Melina, I'll be doing Galactic Heroes until I'm caught up with the anime. Because I don't think the 4th season, if it starts in September, will finish until December. So yeah. Anyway, yeah, thank you for listening. I've been Rebel Notorious, and I hope you tune in next time. Like I said, I don't really have an ending for this, so I just kind of have to try and figure it out as I go along. Bye.